Let's go on to the next question. So this is a poll question. So this is, what is your biggest challenge to improve candidate experience? And you get a choice on this one. So budget, time, technical expertise, resource, technology, selection tools, process, other. There we go. So budget comes out as the biggest pressure. Time, the second biggest one, and then closely followed by resources, which I guess is links to budget and time. Technology, ATS systems on 23, selection tools 13, and then technical expertise. That's interesting. So technical expertise is not one of the biggest pressures facing you guys. So if I can now ask Lucy, so Liberty Global Virgin Media, you're using tech to improve the candidate experience. So how are you using this tech and candidate experience?
Absolutely. So we had a real challenge. For a number of years, we were always perceived as a media company, and for obvious reasons it's in our name, but actually as a telco provider, a lot of the roles we're looking for were technology-based. So we had quite a strong drive from a brand perspective to bring a bit more technology into the process, but as is pretty much echoed by everything we're hearing today, you don't want to lose that personability, and with a brand like Virgin, you obviously want to have that feel that you're giving that great experience as well. So we built technology more and more into different elements of our process, but there was always that sense that technology should actually be about building connections. It's not actually supposed to be a barrier for people. It's not supposed to be something that makes people feel more isolated in the process. So in the process itself, where we were building more tools like situational judgment tests, video interviews, the tools we're using at assessment centres, these were all really driven by real stories from our grads, interns and apprentices, and trying to use it as a way to build real insight. We used real people, telling their stories to kind of build that into the technology and hopefully make it feel a little bit more like they're learning a bit more about the people here as well as kind of the process. Also in the communication channels we used, so obviously we're using things like Facebook, we're using different channels to allow people to communicate to us with questions. What's been interesting, and I think this has started to be reflected in some conversations we've had, is seeing the Generation Z come through versus Generation Y, that perhaps there's a little bit of a rebound towards those more personal interactions. And for us this year in our campaign, we had around 4,000 emails. It remained our dominant kind of channel for people to ask questions, but around 2,000 phone calls into our line, and that's been a massive increase for us. On previous years, people are switching much more to that kind of instant interaction and hearing a real person at the end of the phone. I'd say one of the big lessons learned for us is don't force it. We tried to bring paperless assessment centres in this year, and they've been a great success. So we used the tool that allowed people to get all the information for their task through onto a tablet, but we ran our pilot session with some of our current graduates, and they had to go through these reams and reams of information on a tablet, and they couldn't highlight things properly. They were taking them ages to flip between documents, whereas sheets of paper, they can just flick through, they can pull pages out, they can circle things, highlight things. So when it came to the real day, we had learned that lesson, and we put the paper on the table as well for the candidates. And don't get me wrong, it still delivered a lot of efficiency, particularly on the assessor side, and it was great for the candidates. They'd have this timetable they could use, and our NPS score on those assessment centres ended up being plus 85, so we had fantastic feedback on that, and a lot of people called out the use of that technology. But it's definitely really important you do it in the right way when it comes to that experience, and you really try and live that journey, pilot the tools you're using, and understand the reality of that experience for the candidates.
Is it something you're able to track onto the outcome in terms of offer conversions and that kind of?
Yeah, I mean, we're still kind of live, and we don't want to count our chickens. There's still time. But so far we've seen pretty good retention of people that have been offered through that. And I think the other thing is, as well as being able to track the candidate feedback throughout the process, obviously NPS is one measure of that, we are also collating a lot of feedback on the candidates, and technology gives you a great way to give people as much kind of personalised feedback as possible, because you have a great way of recording everything. Assessment centre documentation has improved so much using some of these things. So there are all those sort of tangential ways as well that the candidate experience can be improved by the technology you're using.
Do you want to know what NPS stands for?
Apologies if not.
What does it stand for?
Net promoter score.
Net
so that's
promoter score.
the number of people
NPS,
promoting.
yeah.
I think, to give an idea, it ranges from minus 100 to 100. So, yeah, we were very pleased with that.
Cool, fantastic, thank you very much. And Catherine, so Atkins recently won Best Candidate Experience at the Recruiter Awards. You're an engineering firm, it's a competitive market. What's Atkins doing to make an increasingly digital experience, to deliver that great experience? And does the human touch still have a role in all this?
Yes, absolutely. It won't surprise anyone to say that it's a blended approach. I think that is the best approach to take. I think it's echoed with a lot of the conversation that we've had along the line so far. For Atkins, if I take you back 5 years, we were on Taleo, a really good platform, but it was experienced hire based. I had to work with what I had at the time. We put a lot of time and effort into trying to make it work and developing it, but I could only take it so far and I didn't really have any data. So what I was able to do is, through the support with Amberjack, bring the client management team in to support the candidate experience at that sort of front end. They were able to help us with a lot of the candidate touch points, and most importantly, they took over the inbox and the email, which with the volume that we manage and the size of my team at the time was out of control, to be quite frank. And I think that blended piece, the picking up the emails in the inbox was a way to actually consider the candidate, but using the technology that Amberjack had, they could tell us what questions, how many and where, so that we could take that information, put that back into the recruitment process so that we could help the candidates not have to reach out to us in that way for some basic things. So that was one part of the learning. And bearing in mind that they were working on our ATS at the time, it taught us an awful lot and we learned an awful lot. So then fast forward a couple of years and I got the opportunity to be able to move all 3 early career streams onto Amberjack. I say lucky, I genuinely mean I do, because our budgets are ridiculously small and tight and I had to fight, but it's all about timing and moment. And for me, that was revolutionary because it would sort of come out up here in terms of the ATS usage and budgets and resource. I sort of knew that if I didn't have the right ATS platform, I wasn't going to be able to do a lot of what I wanted to do. So it enabled me to put the candidate in the same triangle as the business and the recruitment team, and we were able to start delivering and developing the platform that we wanted the candidates to actually go through. So we were able to bespoke it, really technical and a bit complex and difficult, which I'm sure Amberjack will concur there. But it gave us that platform to be able to then do some of the technology plugins. So it wasn't for the sake of it, but we built a bespoke video-based situational judgment test that we plugged in and automated parts of it. But other parts of the process were not automated for good reason. We also put Net Promoter Scores on, which again was revolutionary because you get that real-time data of what your candidates actually think of your process at any stage of the process. And then you get the long answer text to be able to delve through and then feed that back into improving your processes. And we still have the candidate support with Amberjack at that front end, but we're using the right amount of automation at the right time. And for me, it's that blend of technology and the data to be able to, technology helps the candidate experience, it helps your team, it helps provide data that then enables you to put the human touch and the value that your team add in the right places.
Cool. Thanks, Catherine.